Welcome. Those entering the room, if you could please hopefully find a seat. We're going to get started. We're just a little bit late here. You're going to pull up the slides? Okay. So welcome to this exciting session. Good afternoon. We're after lunch, but hopefully we'll be moving around the room. So look forward to that. My name is Ryan Nearing. I'm a research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute, or IFPRI. And I'll be moderating the session, although I was the third choice to moderate, so keep your expectations in check. The good news is that everybody else here was the first choice. So there's a really fantastic set of presentations. And like I said, we'll have an interactive session where you get to move around the room. The title of the session, if you didn't look at the, sorry, just pulling it up. Is this thing gonna? Yeah, okay. Oh, we have the agenda. Well, that's my point. That's my computer. Yeah. Okay, I'll continue while we get this issue resolved. Oh, now it's working. Okay. So the session is participatory research for sustainable and inclusive transformations in food, land, and water systems. And just to go over the agenda quite briefly, we'll have an opening from Lucia Besta, landscape ecologist and interim lead of the multifunctional landscapes science program. We're then going to talk a little bit about participatory research approaches within broadly across the CGIAR research proposal. And we'll draw on a few examples and case studies. That will be myself, my colleague Wei Zhang, who is a senior research fellow at IFPRI, and John Helene from the International Rice Research Institute and the Climate Action Science Program. The next will be the marketplace, which, as I mentioned, this will be the interactive section. There's 9 different posters around the room and presentations. We will have a brief explanation and an introduction, as well as, I think there's sheets of paper going around with the titles of all those presentations. That'll be a really fun session. And there will be 2 Q&As. That will be the opportunity to have more of a conversation with the different presenters. And we'll have a Q&A session after the participatory research approaches part of the overall session. And lastly, John Helene will be closing the session. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Lucibet to open the session. Thank you all again. Good afternoon, colleagues. Welcome to this session. So I will do the easiest part of the session, which is introduce what it is. And the more exciting and challenging one will be presented by a group of colleagues here. So to introduce you overall what we are trying to do, since humanity came into existence, there is a lot of interaction with nature. So we interact with nature in different ways, but the extent and the intensity of our interaction has changed over time and also different in space. So, for example, there is a need to define where we should intervene in a landscape or a certain area, and that requires some engagement with the real actors on the ground. Or we may want to devise a mechanism or a solution for a specific problem, and that solution may not embrace all the communities or the participants across that space. So that means there is a need to negotiate and discuss what should we offer that will complement or address the issues of the different actors. So to do those, there are different mechanisms in place scientifically. For example, some examples are in agroecology and also in nature positive initiatives. We have something we call living landscapes, mostly in the agroecology. So establishing those landscapes, what we do is once they are identified, there is something we call vision for action, to bring all actors discuss on what should be done where and for what benefits. So that is one example of participatory engagement. Another one is innovation platforms, those which were being implemented for a long time. You bring the different actors and stakeholders to discuss and negotiate on what should and need to be achieved. Because this is because there is power dynamics, there are different priorities, and most of our priorities are competing and conflicting. So that means we need to come together to resolve those. And others are like citizen science, which is a new development, which our colleagues will present in detail, is one part or approach that brings different stakeholders to negotiate and to discuss on different methods and approach. So today, our colleagues here will present some examples of participatory stakeholder engagements by different colleagues that have live experience that made a lot of contributions across the scientific endeavors of those areas. As you can see here, we have the first one is the spectrum from participatory methods to participatory research engagements across the spectrum. So there are different levels of doing those. However, in general, whether the issue we are addressing is complex or not, it is generally important that stakeholders are engaged properly so that they belong to the solutions and to identification of the problems. There is also another engagement where power dynamics is a problem. So among the different participatory approaches that are available, you can see participatory research, social inclusion, digital solutions, opportunity space where the actors also engage in their spatial domains, because some may be in the upslope part of an area where we do interventions, but that may affect those in the downslope. So that engagement across that bigger spectrum is also essential. So these are some of the key elements under the participatory research and stakeholder engagement that our colleagues here will present. The details will be provided by the speakers, and also we have a booth or a session where you can come and interact on those engagements. So more or less, I think this is in brief what I want to introduce, and I hope the colleagues will go into the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Luciga. So moving to the next session, I'm going to give a very brief introduction at a high level, a bit on the importance of transdisciplinary research and innovation, and then introduce some of the methods that we're working with in the CGIAR research portfolio on transdisciplinary innovation. So you can see, I hope you can see that. It seems actually quite small, probably in the back, but these three diagrams are pointing to multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity in the middle, and then transdisciplinarity on the right. You probably heard those words a lot. You probably know quite a bit about them, so I hope this isn't too repetitive. But on the left, you can see multidisciplinarity, and this concept is trying to show how different disciplines might work on the same problem or a similar problem, somewhat in silos, even if they're conversely across each other, but still working within whatever disciplinary perspective to try and come up with a solution to that problem. In the middle, interdisciplinarity is more about disciplines coming together and creating a new way of approaching a given problem or coming up with a solution in a new way. So it's not necessarily restricted to those disciplinary boundaries. And then the gold standard, typically the gold standard, transdisciplinarity, visualized on the right, it's not only about coming up with a new approach or working across disciplines on a new approach to a given problem, but also bringing in new different actors, and oftentimes outside of the quote-unquote sort of formal scientific research environment. And so you can see, hopefully, I'll just spell them out quickly, you can see issues such as design, management, policymaking, and other disciplines and fields similar to interdisciplinarity come into this transdisciplinary approach to research. So if we're to take it seriously, and if it is a desirable outcome for transdisciplinary research and innovation, we have a few different ways that the CGIAR is currently working through a transdisciplinary approach to innovation. And one of those, as Luciga mentioned, living labs, sometimes called living landscapes, have a different names depending on the research programming. But living labs are really about place-based innovation. So it's, in a sense, if you think about the word laboratory, it's about taking experimentation and innovation out of a formal laboratory or a controlled environment and into the real world, where users of technologies or stakeholders who have a stake in an innovation are at the driving seat of that innovation process. And so you can see experimentation then is really based around, typically known as the user, but could be a stakeholder or actor. It's really about transdisciplinary problem solving. So if you don't necessarily need to follow that diagram on the left, but you can see there's really a diverse array of actors coming together through this innovation process and through experimentation that goes beyond just formal scientific research, again, typified in potentially a laboratory. That came a little quicker, but also importantly, some of the key principles, and there's many of them. So my colleague Wei Zhang will talk more about our experiences, but it's multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral, often looking at broader systems, and collaborative, as long as all of the actors involved have a stake in the innovation process. Working collaboratively to build trust in the innovation process is central to the functioning of the living lab. And importantly, systems change because of that broad systems approach of collaborating between different sectors and through different multi-stakeholder involvement. There can be system change as a result, but again, I'll turn it over to Wei Zhang, who will talk about more of the specific cases. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you, Ryan, for setting up the stage. I will be sharing some of our experience and lessons learned from the CGIAR research initiative called Low Emission Food System, also known as Mitigate Plus. So in the context of this research initiative, we have developed a living lab for people framework to support locally led effort towards sustainable, equitable, and low emission food system transformation. So by the end of 2024, all 4 living lab sites, they're spreading across 4 countries, China, Colombia, Kenya, and Vietnam. They had adapted the framework to support the co-creation of innovation processes that align with the local priorities while delivering mitigation and other desirable social and environmental outcomes. One evaluation study conducted by the initiative's Malia team concluded that in China and Kenya, the Living Lab already led to changes in awareness, empowerment, and just lost my notes, and empowerment and innovation process. Right. Okay. Right. And then I'll go through this very quickly. In China, the Living Lab contributed to the action plan development for Qingshan Village. This village has been chosen as the future village and zero carbon village pilot site by the Zhejiang province. And we're also in the process of scaling this Living Lab approach to support low emission village development through this alliance on Yangtze River Delta. I lost my notes, I couldn't read that far. Yeah, and then in Colombia, the Living Lab has the next slide. Right. We have signed a memorandum of understanding with Agro Solidaria, which is our local host. This is to ensure that we have a sustainable institutional framework for the Living Lab. And we have conducted citizen jury in Bogota to come up with a set of recommendations on how to enhance decision deliberation and civil engagements for sustainable food system transformation. In Kenya, we have entered into an agreement with the Nandi County government to have the Kaimosi Agricultural Training Center as the host of our Living Lab. And an independent advisory board has been established, which will oversee the Living Lab activities and develop strategies for selecting and evaluating innovation cases. Last year, the team launched the first call for innovation cases, and the submission have been reviewed by the independent advisory board. And in Vietnam, our national and subnational partners co-selected the Living Lab site in the Mekong Delta region with the initiative, and they have achieved a lot of outcomes, including co-creation of low emission practices, journalist training, and curriculum development, which has been adopted by national and subnational partners. And moving forward, in terms of the lessons learned, there are a few lessons that I want to share with you. One is that reliable and sufficient funding is crucial to fund participatory action research that's needed to support the establishment of Living Labs. Second, time and patience are also incredibly important, because we need to build the trust and relationship with and among the local stakeholders. And a timely communication strategy is important to communicate the activities and results, not only with the local stakeholders, but also with regional stakeholders who may be interested in replicating the effort. And final point is about researchers. We also need to learn to adapt and be prepared to be flexible when we are engaging in such transdisciplinary work. Thank you.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. John Helene from the International Rights Research Institute, and also working for the Climate Action Science Programme. I'd like to build on what Ryan and Ray, and actually Lussigad, said in his opening remarks. For some reason, I've been given 6 minutes, while the other two only had 3 minutes each. But I have only got 3 slides, and I want to revisit the title of this session, and that will be the basis of each of my 3 slides. So just a reminder, participatory research for sustainable and inclusive transformations in food, land, and water systems. So I want to look at, first of all, transformations, participatory research on the second slide, and then close with the sustainable and inclusive, or the term that I prefer to use, not everyone would agree, sustainable and equitable. Okay, first of all, transformation. And I didn't bring the right glasses because I can't even read it from here. But basically, I know the slide, I think, well enough. IPCC report from 2022 and the definition of systems transformation. As an agricultural research and development organisation, we're extremely keen working with partners on technology development. But at the end of the day, systems transformation is a process of societal and environmental change. Technology is critical, but it's a social and societal change. IPCC also talked about the importance of tackling the root causes of vulnerability. And Lussigad mentioned power. I mean, this includes power relationships and networks of control and influence. And then Ray conveniently said at the end of her talk about doing research differently. And I love this GIZ document that came out a few years ago about getting ready for transformation projects, and talked about having to transform the way our work, we have to transform the way we work before we can transform the world. And this has led to a growing interest in what's become known as locally led climate adaptation. And I consider it business unusual. Some of you may have been in the room yesterday when I introduced the same idea, partly because we've had participation around for a long time, but it can go from passive to active. Conveniently, we have avoided often issues around power relations. I'll just leave you for 20 seconds just to read that quote from a very useful paper, which I think for me sums up why locally led climate adaptation is important. basically, a lot of the time, and it's not a critique of anyone, I have committed the same mistakes in the past, a tendency to impose externally, a tendency to undermine local agency, and a tendency either to ignore or in some worst case scenarios through maladaptation, exacerbate power inequalities and power discrepancies. Because in order to get results, and you're doing participatory research, it's so easy to go with the lead farmers who not always, but quite often and not, the people we work with can be the more powerful and influential. So there's a movement now that was launched in 2022 by the Global Commission on Adaptation, setting out principles of locally led adaptation. What I also like about this is, led by the Global Commission on Adaptation, endorsed by about 130 organizations. And I know in CGIAR, it's often that we want to be seen as at the vanguard of agricultural research. But what I like about this, when we're looking at our locally led climate adaptation, we can tap into existing and growing networks. We do that anyway, but we need to be a little bit more humble in how we go about our research. And tapping into a network like the locally led climate adaptation, I think is a very effective way in order to do, which is the critical thing, translating principles of locally led adaptation into practice. And I think CG and partners in this room and beyond, we're in an extremely good position to build on a host of participatory approaches that have been used before and are continuing to be used, be they the Living Labs work. And in our case, we've been working on aligning some community mapping, which I would say has been treating communities as homogenous and not taking into account power relations, with a methodology that's been developed to unpack issues around social equity, to ensure that the voices of the unheard are heard more, that we analyze climate risks from the perspectives of different people. We look at the differential adaptation pathways open to them. We have research in the Philippines, which is building on CGIAR research, which is being supported by the Australian Council for International Centre for International Agricultural Research. And we're seeking to broaden this out, not only in the Climate Action Science Programme, but throughout the CGIAR, drawing on a host of participatory methodologies and being just more aware of power relations and not seeking to avoiding the temptation of inadvertently imposing our perceived solutions on others. So perhaps one could say a more humble approach to doing agricultural research for development. Thank you.
So hello, my name is Simone, and we have just like 10 minutes, 8 minutes for some questions from the room to the speakers about the Living Labs concept, about different levels of participatory research, or the self-criticism about how we have done it in the past and how we can improve. Comments, questions? Yes? Do you want to take the mic? Is here? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Very interesting. My name is Jenny Barron. I work for the Swedish University of Agriculture Sciences. We work a lot with Living Labs concept and trying to see how it works. So my question is, the last speaker talking about being humble and tying into existing things that people are doing. My question is it always a CG or a research for development partner that should instigate or initiate a Living Lab? Or should researchers tap into other structures that could operate as a Living Lab and which is actually hosted and maybe owned by other actors? Thanks.
Do we have another question? No? Okay, let's take, who wants to reply?
I don't actually work directly on Living Labs, so if Ray could perhaps take that question. I mean, I have an answer and I'd love to talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, I can start, Ryan, if you want to add anything, please feel free. Yes, in fact, that's exactly what we try to do. In every context, every site, we try to look for partners, who share the framework, the principles of the Living Lab for people, and we then enter into an agreement in which they would serve as the host of the Living Lab. So instead of the CG project, which at some point we will end, we would like to consider that kind of long-term institutional sustainability from the beginning. And I think one of the key features of the Living Labs for People is that the governance structure is embedded in existing organization structures that share the interests. Yeah. You want to add anything?
I think John might add to that.
I would agree. I mean, I think it should be instigated from anywhere. I mean, one of the beauties around the GIZ document I talked about, and thinking about truly putting transdisciplinary partnerships into effect, is that, in the words of Robert Chambers, who wrote the book back in 1983, I still think as researchers, in this case, we've got to put ourselves last sometimes and recognize that great ideas are arising from elsewhere. There are power asymmetries in any sort of research relationship, and to be cognizant of them is absolutely critical. And I will unashamedly say I truly recognize that, being male, pale, and getting a little bit stale, but there are others out there who are so much better positioned to come up with fascinating research modalities. So more listening and then joint action.
Yes. In the back? You as well, or you wanted to show me? Okay.
Yeah, my name is Birgit. I work for INRI. So I have a question first to the audience, then to the panel. How many of you in the room are 100% sure that your research is relevant? I mean, really the term relevant. Don't be shy. So I think you got the ratios almost right, because studies that I know show us that only 8% of the research that we do is actually relevant for the people we work for, which is mostly farmers, pastoralists. So my question comes back to the panel about participation. I'm also gray since 25 years. So what is different today than 25 years ago that we can do it differently now to be more relevant, more responsive?
Thank you. To this easy question. Julian, speaker.
Well, this what I'm about to say doesn't always go down very well with some of my colleagues, but I'll do it anyway. It's to do with, there's an aspect of being humble. There's also an aspect of something I get a bit obsessed with, which is sort of impact pathways and recognizing that we can produce research outputs, but actually to move to outcomes and impacts is well beyond our control as researchers. And we have to much more readily engage with and co-design and co-implement researchers with partners who probably go beyond the traditional partners that we've aligned with, empower them from very early on. And I've got to be very careful, push back a little bit on the expectation that we're going to see outcomes and impacts in the time frame of a 2 or 3 or whatever research program or project, and recognize that you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. We are totally dependent on the actions of other players outside our immediate research area in order to bring about those outcomes and impacts. So more honesty as to how the research and development process translates into outcomes and impact. For me, that would be a major first step. The second one would be embracing failure when things don't go wrong. Failure is inevitable on the road to success. We all make mistakes. Let's not cover up the mistakes. We embark on things in aspirational ways. What worked? Why? What didn't work? Why didn't it work? I always think there should be a journal or journals out there specifically on cases where things have not worked. Honesty in the research process.
Okay, yes, so we have one more. One more? One more? Okay, one more.
Okay, thank you. My name is Samantha Waki from the Grass Company. And so we do come from a different perspective in terms of research. We have been doing research for some time, starting from the private sector, and so more of market research. But then in the last maybe 7-8 years, we've moved into the social impact sector. And so it's encouraging for me to hear talk of humility, and especially this desire to learn, because it surprises me, because we come from a consumer, stakeholder, end user perspective, and we don't consider ourselves a research agency, but a consumer collaboration agency. And so one of the reasons our founders started this organization was working with youth, and coming from that understanding, which you articulated quite well, that when it comes to products or projects targeting youth, the decision makers who make decisions based on allocation of funding, the decision makers make these decisions in contexts where the youth are not present, they're not visible, they're not involved, and then you dictate a solution, and then you put your resources behind it to ensure that they adopt it. And so we started in that way, working largely with Safaricom PLC in Kenya, and we really helped shape the youth strategy very early on by adopting this collaborative approach. And so when we did move to the social impact sector, I discovered a word we didn't have in the marketplace, which is hello. Testing mic 1 2 1 2. Well, it's not bad at all. Okay, so we discovered a word that we did not have in my context, which was learning. And so you have a project, the project fails to deliver on expectations, and then we call it learning, and we create a new project based on our failures, and we call it learning. And so my curiosity is this humility, will it also go internally into the processes that are guiding you? Because I've seen this replicated in different social impact organizations in a way that I don't see it in the marketplace, because the market responds with their coin. And so if it's a failure, it's not a learning, it's a loss. And so I just wanted to understand structurally, is this also informing on internal processes in a way to make you more willing to collaborate with actors like us?
Just, that was a very long question, and you ate the time of the answer. So I invite you, you talk to the guys next, because otherwise we will not have time to do the marketplace. And apparently we have another room in the room, so I will look at what happens. And Ryan will introduce the marketplace. How the tests, 1, 2, 3, how the tests.
Okay, there's somebody testing a microphone, and I'll just talk very loudly so it won't disturb us too much. Meanwhile, there's somebody trying to solve it. There's some issue. I'm just imagining if this happens in a UN session with ministers here, testing 1, 2, 3, what the reaction would be. But it's interesting to be managing chaos, and that's what we're going to do right now. So I wonder if anyone knows the next slide. on the clicker actually. Okay, now our technical person has actually disappeared and we cannot share the slide. There you go. Very good, thanks. Problem solved. Our next activity is going to be something like this. It's going to be very colorful and it's going to be very interactive, like a real marketplace. I wonder if anyone knows where this is. It's not in Africa. This is in Guatemala. So this is in Latin America, actually, in a country, a very small country just south of Mexico. But the local markets, you can find them anywhere in the world, and they still provide most of our food, actually, in the global south. So what we're going to do, and they're very interactive places, right? They're humble places as well. You really have to be selling good things to be selling what you have, and that's also what we're going to do. So if you can move to the next slide, please. What we're going to do is a number of CGIAR researchers and others are going to be around the room selling what they're doing on citizen science, because there's so many things going on in the CGIAR on citizen science and on participatory science in general. But it's impossible to get. If we do talks, it will be very boring. So we made it interactive. So everybody will take up a stand and you can go around. We'll do 4 rounds. So you have like 10 minutes. You can interact with your vendor and see if you like and you want to buy. And then you move on and you go to another one. So you can see 4 of these in the coming hour. But you can pick between 10. So we have handed out these sheets in the room where you can see the different vendors that are there. And they're also up here. So the first one is Lisa, who will be talking about principles of engagement and vision to action for transdisciplinary research and co-design in agroecology. And Lisa, can you please go to number 1? So the number 1 will be here in this corner. So if you want to talk with Lisa and learn more about the principles, you can go there. So then number 2 will be Rosina about agroecological business model development. Super interesting, how to make science sustainable. Here at number 2. And then ACT, a conceptual framework for agency and behavior change in agri-food systems transformation by Thomas, will be here in this corner. That's 4. Okay, we have something going on with the numbers. I hope it works out. Next slide, please. Then this is one. Okay, sorry. There's one. So you can maybe get a surprise if you. Then you have 4 and 5 actually together, I think, from me. Yes. So Mark will be in here, where the number 5 is, talking about MiniSAS, which is a citizen science biomonitoring tool for indicator 6.3.2. That's one of the SDG indicators. Is about ambient water quality. So actually, people looking if the water is good quality. Then EnviroChamps, digitally enhanced community-based environmental monitoring. Also with Mark, if you want to visit. Maybe you can already go there, Mark, because otherwise you'll be very busy with that. Experimental citizen science platform. That's me, Jacob van Etten, working at the Alliance. I'll be in that corner. So this is a citizen science platform that is being used by the breeding programs in the CGIAR to test their products with the final consumers. Then we're going on to number 8, which is about citizen science applications in East African livestock farming, which is Brigitte Halleman, who just asked a very critical question about how we're different, and she will be at number 8. I just skipped Anna, I don't know why. So Anna actually works with me. Anna Müller will be talking about from contributors to co-creators, participation motivations in citizen science. Will be at number 7. Maybe Anna, you can already stand up and go wherever you need to go. 7 is in this corner. So Anna, her question is actually, why do people want to participate in citizen science as a research question? And then Niyati, where are you? Niyati will be talking about rice crop manager, challenges faced by smallholder farmers in adopting digital technologies. And that is number 9. I think we just mixed up the numbers. So somebody was missing and then we mixed up the numbers. So we now need to find our places. But Niyati will be at number 9. Where is Niyati?
Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Niyati is there. And nine is here. Yeah. So if you can come. 7 is in this corner. No? Yeah, this way. Okay, I think we just actually mixed up this thing, huh? Because on the sheet it's different, but anyway. Okay, so. Hmm. Okay, so we'll just you can go to the session that you like to go to, and then in 10 minutes we'll play some music and you move to a different vendor stall. Thank you very much. So many slides. I think that it was a bit too clever. Anyway. I think what number? I don't know anymore. This is 6. Yes. Where's number? You skip it. Yeah, I know. Start when you get a group. Yeah. And tell them to go to the the quicker you move, the sooner it starts, the more time you have.
Yeah, it's 9 group. Group 9. Group 9.
Thanks, mix. No, once people are there, because they. I don't know.
Time to shift to another station. Please wrap up.
Hello?
Yes, you need to use this.
Okay, please rotate. Please wrap up the conversation and rotate to another station. This is a race. Please find a new station. There's lots of interesting ones. You'll have the opportunity to see two more. Okay. Please shift to a new station. And we will restart in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you now have 10 minutes. Okay, time to change. Time to shift stations. Please rotate stations. You have 10 seconds to rotate stations. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, please switch. Somebody switch. Time to move. Please move. This is the last station. Please move. This is a marketplace. Please move to a new stall. I know. Oh my God, how am I going to get people to sit down? Did it work? You found the good. Okay, if you could start closing and find your seats, please. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the university. Oh, cool. Cool. You know, you're all hanging out together. And you're about the same age, I am. Please find your seats. Please return to your seats. If you could close your conversations, presenters. We'll just have a really quick closing. Please, if you can return to your seats. Please find your seats. We're gonna have to count down. Nobody likes countdowns. Good conversations. Impossible. I'm never moderating market.
Either rain or power or something.
Yeah. That's what I want to do. I generally don't think I'm a lead person. So yeah. I prepared a piece, but I don't know whether we have it. I need 2 minutes. Which fair? The grant was open when the first you pitching this? No. Which event? This I will be there right after. The one we have right now. This one is ending. Yeah. And then you're gonna be here. No? The current the one that's going on, the one that's going on right now. It's ending. Yeah. And 3:30. And then you in this one? Yes. So you want to pitch what's happening here next? I tell people, hey, if you want to stand. Actually, no, I'm okay. Good. Are we finishing now? Please find your seats in the next 30 seconds, please.
I had prepared something for the traffic was being discussed. So this was being asked, and these days it's a problem.
Okay, we don't know what I'm doing with Q&A.
We're finishing at 3:30.
Yeah,
Okay, really good. So I said anything more?
Yeah, so you got 2 minutes. No, well, you got 5 minutes. Great. If you want to, whatever you want to do. Please take your seats. As soon as possible, take your seats. Run to them, sit down quickly. Lisa, please end your conversation and take your seats. I'm so sorry. We just need to keep time.
I'll start.
Yeah? Okay, I have one thing to say, but I'll say it after.
You sure?
It's just a pitch for our multifunctional.
Sure thing. Okay, I know everyone's been very excited by today's session, but let me try and lower the levels of excitement by talking to you, and then we'll be able to finish on time. So Just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, please, hopefully you can go and find some tea or coffee outside afterwards and continue the dynamic conversations. But I did volunteer to say a few closing words, which shouldn't be that difficult, bearing in mind that I didn't participate in anything in the marketplace and hence have no idea what you were talking about. But because I was engaged in very interesting conversations myself. But just a reminder again, we had an hour and a half. We're delighted you came. This was on participatory research, absolutely critical for sustainable and inclusive transformations in food, land, and water systems. There are huge challenges out there. I like to think that challenges are opportunities. I think we can achieve a lot. And my whole motivation is driven, forgive me being English, by a 17th century English philosopher, or he might have been an 18th century, who said, no man made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could do only a little. And I can only ever do a little. I've only ever done a little, but little by little, we can do a lot. So we had a lot of interesting opening remarks about participation and things around power. Ryan talking about the differences, and they're more than nuanced differences between multi, inter, and transdisciplinary research. Ray talking about living labs. I was talking about locally led climate adaptation. We don't want these, what I consider quite radical approaches to research. We don't want them to be misused, overused, and abused, and just used as a term, which means that we can carry on business as usual. We are in partnerships. We had questions around who's best placed to foster innovations. I think innovative ideas should bubble up from anywhere and from anyone. Youth, wherever it might be, we work together. Marketplace, I hope, stimulated more discussions. Good energy in the room. Always a bad time having a session straight after lunch. More so, actually, if you haven't had any lunch, but you've done remarkably well. Big thank you to all your active engagement and participation. Please, let's carry on the conversations over the next few days and beyond. We've all got emails, we've all got social media. Well, some of us have, I haven't. But, you know, we can carry on with the dialogues and discussions and advance and put this world, which is under quite a lot of strain at the moment, get it back on the right trajectory. Ryan, over to you.
Everyone, please take your seats. No, I'm kidding. I just have one really quick thing to say before we close, and that is a plug for another seminar, the launch of the Multifunctional Landscape Science Program. If you want to jot it down, it's in Conference Room 1 at 8 a.m. on Friday. It'll be an excellent way to start the day. So just want to give that plug. Other than that, the session's over. Fantastic panelists here and a really exciting marketplace. I apologize for having to interrupt. We just needed to keep time. So just a round of applause for all of these fantastic presenters. Thank you.
Mm.